All right. Hey. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Taxpayers Association of El Dorado County's EID Division I Candidate Forum. My name is Andy Nevis. I'm the president of this association. EID's Division I stretches from Pollock Pines down through the Pleasant Valley area down to Diamond Springs. And today we're joined by the two candidates for that division, the incumbent Director George Osborne and challenger Sue Taylor. Today's discussion will be in three parts. First, we'll hear opening statements from the candidates, and then we will have 4 questions that have been developed by a committee of Taxpayer Association directors. And then finally, we'll have questions from the audience. Those of you in the audience can submit questions in one of 3 ways. You can submit questions if you're here on Zoom in the chat box. If you're watching via Facebook Live, you can put it into the comment section of this video. And finally, you can submit via email to taxpayersedc@gmail.com, and that's all lowercase. A reminder for our candidates that this is not a debate. Questions must be able to be answered by both candidates here today. I would also encourage the candidates to avoid any personal attacks to the extent possible, while of course acknowledging that there's important differences on the issues between the two of you. And with that, we'll start today's forum with the same way we start every taxpayers event, with the Pledge of Allegiance. So gentlemen, remove your covers and join with me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So now we're going to get started with opening statements. And each candidate is going to have 3 minutes for an opening statement. And just bear with me while I get my timer set. And I think we'll start with the incumbent, Mr. Director Osborne. And so I'm going to move the camera over to you. All right. Let me just make sure the camera's set properly before you get started.
Looks like it probably needs
to go up just a tiny bit. That's pretty good. So Director Osborne, the floor is yours. You have 3 minutes. I'll give you signals at 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Okay.
All right, so go ahead on whenever you're ready. Yep.
Well, 20 years ago, EID was an absolute mess. Every edition of the Mountain Democrat was, how screwed up it was. The regulatory agencies were after us. I mean, it was just all kinds of problems. The safety record was deplorable. The bonds were junk. The regulatory agencies were beaten up on the district, way overstaffed with people, and much of the number one thing, a good percentage of our water belonged to somebody else. Well, we're going to have today, which has been planned now for 6 months. We're going to do it in April, but there's something called COVID came along and screwed that up. So we're going to have an acknowledgement today out at Sly Park at 10:30, and we're going to have a little issue there out there to celebrate the fact that we now own Sly Park, and the bonds are paid off. The bonds were issued in 2004, paid off in October last year. We would have had it in October last year, but this thing called PSPS, or the power shutoffs, kind of screwed that up. So anyway, it's been set for September 21st, months ago. And so, but the bonds were paid off, $11.5 million bought a whole lake, water treatment plant, which would cost $30 million at minimum to rebuild or replicate, all the pipes, all the plumbing, the campgrounds, but most importantly, 41,600 acre feet of water belong to the citizens of this district now instead of the federal government. And it would have been a huge problem during the drought we were able to manipulate or manage our water from our district actually starts at 8,000 feet. It's Capel, Silver, Aloha, and Echo Lakes, and it ends at 350 feet in El Dorado Hills. So in the meantime, you've got a lot of plumbing, we got 9 dams, 2,200 miles of pipe, 22 miles of flume that we're working on to replace. And we just rebuilt the 4-bay reservoir from 1-day water supply to 6 days water supply. In case something goes wrong with that flume, a fire, rock goes through it, we lose a third of our water supply. And if that would have happened during August with that heat, everybody would have been in mandatory water rationing without question. 1 minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, we have reduced our staffing by 30%. I want to ask everybody out here, how many government agencies reduced their staffing by anything? And ours are down 30% from what it was in 2007. Our bonds now are investment grade, A plus and A minus, depending on the rating agency. And we are actively fixing the infrastructure some of this stuff virtually goes back into the 1860s. So it's a challenging job, and I will continue to work on all of this stuff and protect agriculture and small farms.
All right. Thank you, Director Osborne. We'll now pass that microphone over to Sue.
I'm COVID-free, by the way.
And Sue, I'll tell you, I was distracted by a technical issue here, so I missed one of the time points for George. So he ended up getting about 4 minutes. So I'll give you 4 minutes as well, if you'd like to go long. Yeah, that should be working well. Those on Zoom, if you want to chat me if something doesn't seem right, please do. But go ahead with your opening statement, Sue. Yeah.
I want to thank the taxpayers for having me here. I've been a member, I think, for about 10 years of this organization. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and for everyone that's joined us to listen. For those that don't know me, my name is Sue Taylor. I'm the Vice President of the El Dorado County Republican Women Federated, which is based in Placerville, and we've been working really hard to grow our club, especially now. I am fiscally conservative. I'm not a big fan of debt. I've lived in Camino for over 43 years. When I moved there with my parents, I went off to college, met my husband, came back to Camino and raised our family. We bought land near our parents, and we started an apple farm and became members of Apple Hill. My husband and I built our own water line to our farm, which we later annexed into EID. I'm a building designer, and my husband and I rescued the historic Herrick and Hangman buildings on Main Street in Placerville from demolition, and I've spent the last few years restoring the buildings.
Hey, Sue, I don't mean to interrupt you. We got to move that mic closer to you, where folks still aren't hearing you.
Can't hear me. Can you hear me now? Do you see my mouth?
There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
okay.
that looks better.
Okay.
If you want to start over, feel free, but you don't have to.
Did anybody hear anything I said, or do I need to try that over?
They heard you, but it's up to you. Let me know.
Well, basically, I talked about I'm Vice President of the Republican Women's. We're growing our club. We're based in Placerville. I'm fiscally conservative and not a big fan of debt. I've lived in Camino for over 43 years. When my parents retired there, and I went off to college, met my husband, and we came right back and raised our family in Camino. We bought land near our parents. We were originally going to be joint apple farmers, and then unfortunately my father ended up passing away in a tractor accident. So anyway, my husband and I continued to endeavor in farming, and we built our own water line, which we later annexed into EID. I'm a building designer, and my husband and I rescued the historic Herrick and Hangman buildings on Main Street from demolition. And I've spent the last few years with everybody watching, restoring those buildings. We also have a business in those buildings, so we understand the impact of high sewer and water rates and how they impact small businesses. I'm upset that EID's debt and our rates have tripled debt makes it hard for people to be independent. It's hard to be in farming or business or any of those things when your debt is more than your income. Our board needs to stop rubber stamping every recommendation that staff brings before them. I am the one that will ask questions, do research, and see if there's a better way and less expensive way to solve a problem. If you elect me, I will fight an overreaching bureaucracy for the ratepayers that I wish to represent. Thank you.
All right. So, Sue, I'm going to give you that.
Are you gonna go back?
So you can set the camera on top of that.
Oh.
That way it gets your face a little bit better. Sorry, thanks everybody for bearing with us. So the next section is going to be our question and answers. We'll start with some questions that I developed in consultation with a few of our directors. Those were Harry Norris, Carol Lewis, and Chris Payne. So I'm going to start with Director Osborne, and you'll have 1 minute and 30 seconds for these answers. I'm hoping to avoid follow-ups after the other candidate has responded, but if I deem it necessary, I'll go ahead and allow the first candidate 30 seconds if it's just out of fairness. But I'm hoping to avoid that if we can avoid, personal attacks to the extent possible. So, Director Osborne, first question is to you. How would you characterize EID's water supply situation? What more can the district do to prepare for a severe multi-year drought?
Yeah, great question. We have been acquiring water rights as rapidly as we can get them. We acquired 41,000 acre feet plus in Slack Park, which is basically a 2-year supply without any reductions in consumption. We also have 15,080 acre feet of water that comes out of our high mountain lakes. We have water, almost 30,000 acre feet now in the El Dorado Hills. We're trying to move that up the river. But the important thing is, I'm still working on 15,000 acre feet of drought storage up in the SMUD project for drought protection. 15,000 acre feet would augment our system, would get us through about 3 years. We were lucky. We only had a 4-year drought. There's records of 10 and 15-year droughts without any, and then they had no population. So we're constantly working on water rights and constantly not giving up even, and we're trying to get what's called phasio water, which is how long it takes was, it was 1993 when they started on that process. So anyway, we're constantly getting water.
Great. All right, we'll pass the mic over to Sue.
Put it on your box.
Sue, yep, if you could put it on that box there, I think that'll help, and move the box as close as you can. There we go, perfect. All right, go ahead, start whenever you're ready.
Ask me the question.
Yeah, sure. How would you characterize EID's water supply situation, and what more can the district do to prepare for a severe multi-year drought?
So I think we have about 70,000 acre feet of water rights, and we use about 23 to 25. So I think it's really that we should be concerned about continuing to add capacity, and along with also making sure we have enough to cover for drought. And if, I'm not as dived into all of the details as George has over the 20 years, but I think if we're trying to acquire a place to store that water, that would be very beneficial for drought specifically. But I am concerned about what our master plan is when we have, almost over 3 times more water rates than what we're currently using. So.
Great. All right, so it's going to stay with you, Sue. And just a comment from Chris Payne on Zoom. He asked that both candidates try to speak into the microphone as much as you can. We're getting, we're doing our best. We're doing our best, but we're still, it's a little bit quiet, but I think everybody can at least hear you somewhat. So that's good.
Right.
So next question, we'll start with you, Sue. When EID wishes to raise rates, state law requires them to go through a process to inform ratepayers and give them an opportunity to protest, known as Proposition 218. Do you think EID's current Prop 218 process is fair to ratepayers? If not, how would you improve the process?
I think it's absolutely not fair. 218 is basically, they decide to raise the rates, and then 218 says everybody in the district is voting yes, unless you submit something with all this information on it that you vote no. So it's not like a true ballot where you have a choice of yes or no. You actually actively have to go and submit something to EID that you vote no. So I don't think it's a fair, and the size of this county, to try to lobby and get people organized to challenge that is almost impossible.
All right. Oh, hold on here. I accidentally switched. No, you're good. Sue, say something.
Something. Can you hear me now? Am I completely off?
No, I think you're good.
All right.
Okay. Back to George.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
So do you remember the question? Okay.
Prop 218 is a requirement of the law. Originally, it was not applicable to water and sewer rates, that the courts, after it was passed, said, yes, it did. So when we go to raise rates, we go through the process of 218, and we hire an outside consultant who is supposed to be the expert in how to do this. We allow people to submit complaint or negative comments in writing, email, any way you can get it to us, and our rate of contestments is less than 2%. Most people understand we've got to fix the system. We can't just ignore the system that is 50, 60, sometimes 100 years old. And we also have to make sure that our water is healthy, safe, clean, and reliable.
All right. And so Director Osborne, we'll stay with you for the next question. As an EID director, you would be, or in your case, you have been working with 4 other individuals representing other parts of the district. How would you work with the other directors to achieve your objectives?
Well, you have to be very careful. We can't talk to, like I could talk to Mr. Rafferty, but because of the Brown Act, I can't talk to anybody else about an issue.
Keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
Is that good?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Want me to repeat that?
No. Go ahead.
So, if there's a specific issue that is going to be agendized, you can't just go talk to them about it. And so there are legal constraints, and quite plainly, it's difficult. But I always work in the board meeting to understand everybody's position, the people that they represent, because I represent a very rural part of the county. Mr. Day represents a subdivision, a suburbia. So we have to work together. We have to try to come to a media, and believe it or not, 99% of our projects are 5-zip votes. There's only a couple of them that have been, contestant, and that was the main ditch. You can go back, that was 19, and so far this is 20, roughly 90. They're not just a rubber stamp.
Okay. We'll pass it over to Sue. And again, yeah, get that as close as you can. See, without that's good. That's good. That's perfect. Go ahead.
So I think that the practice that we have where the board, you can't, according to the Brown Act, you can't talk to more than 2 people can't talk together outside of a board meeting. But that's what board meetings are for, is to discuss things together. All 5 members can talk during a board meeting. So I would rather see, that's where I come up with the rubber stamping. They don't have a lot of discussion in those meetings. They never question, they never ask, or they never have a dialogue, and they really don't invite the public to have that dialogue with them. That usually you're shut down or made to feel stupid if you try to engage with them on an issue. So I would like to see more transparency within those board meetings, during the meetings, and a better participation with the public during that time.
Perfect. All right. I'll go back. Actually, sorry, we'll start with you again for the next question. So this is starting with Sue, and this is a multi-part question. So be sure to listen to all of the parts of the question.
We do part by
EID is currently planning to pipe approximately 3 miles of the upper main ditch in Pollock Pines, as I know you both are well aware.
Mhm.
The district maintains that the piping project is necessary to enhance drinking water quality and prevent leakage, while community members are concerned about the loss of a scenic and recreational resource. Where do you stand on that project? If you support the project, how would you address the community's concerns? And if you oppose the project, how would you address state mandates to prevent leakage and improve drinking water quality? So Sue, we'll start with you.
So I oppose that project. That project came before the board at I think it was $3.4 million project, and they approved it at 17.7 without much dialogue about it at all. And they're claiming about safety that they had the sheriff give a report. Over 20 years, there's been 4 incidences. And if you look at the incidences, you don't even know if they actually impacted the canal. So I think there's a better way to, and I also object to the state mandates. We didn't find, and there was no evidence that the state has ever mandated for that to be piped. So there's a lot of misinformation. There's a whole ecology that works around that canal right there. And to just shut it off and let everything die, I think is a fire hazard. It also, that water line also serves as a fire protection for that community. So I don't really see the necessity. It's been there since the gold rush, and we've been just fine through all that. So I don't approve that project.
Okay. How's that?
That's good.
Okay. Well, it is a health hazard. There's at least 11 septic tanks that leach into it. We cannot control the stuff in there, even though the sheriff's report indicated a deceased body. The crews are always taking dead animals out of it, all kinds of other things that we cannot control the health and safety of the water supply. It's the last open conduit between a reservoir and a treatment plant. We can, that ditch may be great at 1880, but this is not 1880, it's 2020. And we have a whole different arena of things. Now, one of the things that comes out of that is when we open that ditch up, the E. coli and Giardia parasite, the E. coli is a bacteria, and it skyrockets because of human waste out of those septic tanks. The Giardia is from animal waste. And I tell you what, you do not want Giardia. I had it once, and I guarantee you don't. The treatment is worse than the Giardia. But anyway, the point is, it's a health hazard. We need to pipe it. And again, our job is to provide clean, reliable, healthy, safe drinking water, not aesthetics, anything else. And so that's why I strongly supported this project and have for years. I'm done.
Okay.
Can I have my 30 seconds on that one?
I think you both.
I'll bring it in later.
Okay, you both represented your position, so I think we're good there. So we're going to move on to questions and answers from the audience. Reminder: those of you in the room behind me, you have some note cards. So if you have questions you'd like to jot down on those, please do, and just walk them up to me at any time. I also am going to be checking the email inbox, taxpayersedc@gmail.com. And so if you're listening online, you can ask questions that way. And of course, our Taxpayers Association members listening in on Zoom, you can type those questions into the Zoom box, the chat box there. But I do have a few that were submitted in advance to start off with. So we'll start with Director Osborne. This is a question from Cecil Riggenberg. How do you feel about EID developing the Alder Creek Reservoir?
I strongly support building the Alder Creek Reservoir. That would be about 30,000 additional acre feet of water. Remember, because we have water, we sell water. This year we'll probably sell 5,000 acre feet of it, and I think we're going to get a price of about $325. That's roughly $1.5 million that we put in to work to reduce debt, reduce our retirement obligations. I strongly want to build Alder Creek Dam. What I really want to do with it, if we do it, is to make it a lake for rafters, non-power boats to get people. It'd be a great place for that. A beautiful lake. By the way, just as a side issue, I asked the staff to look into at the new reservoir in Pollock Pines, the 4-bay reservoir, to put rafting, kayaking and canoe, not full body contact on that lake. It's perfect for that. I strongly recommend that the EID pursues the Alder Creek Reservoir.
Okay. We'll go back over to Sue.
Oh.
There you go. Go for it.
So I need to look more into that. I don't have the background on the Alder Creek reservoir, but I am concerned about taking more and more water off the earth. When we keep channeling it and piping it and taking off of its natural flows, we're drying up our vegetation. And I have concerns that we haven't been doing very good on the vegetation management when it comes to, we're channeling all this water, and what is the purpose? And the more we channel into, it usually goes down the hill, down onto El Dorado Hills and down to Folsom. So I'm concerned about taking it off the earth in our county or in farming or the different things that we need to be using it for. And what is the overall cost to all of those different entities when we do this? So.
Okay. All right, so we'll stay with you, Sue, for the next question. Next question is from, I'm going to go to Marianne Washburn. She's asking, please discuss your view of climate change in regard to water supply in the future. So we'll start with you, Sue.
So the people that advocate for climate change, I'm not sure what their answer is to resolve that, because all you do is hear them use that term to blame everything on, but yet they don't even seem to have a solution for how it would be solved. So I look at vegetation management. Does saying climate change means that we don't take care of the vegetation, or is that an excuse not to do so? So I would say we need to do a better job with vegetation management, and especially with our watershed going through all that forest. And we have not been doing a good job on our forest.
Okay. So we'll move over to Director Osborne.
Oh.
Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Well, I do agree with my opponent, Ms. Taylor, on vegetation management. We've been watching fuel build up, and if you don't know, I retired as the chief of CAL FIRE for 4 counties, and my assignment before that was they pulled me out of the field to be the chief of management services, budgets, accounting, personnel, construction, law enforcement, everything else that they could throw at me. But back to the question of climate change. I think that there is some climate change, but I think it's cyclical. There are times when we're talking about 30 years ago, they were talking about cold, going back into a cold snap. So, but the big problem with the climate change as far as drought, we have to plan for it. If in fact it happens, they're saying that the water is going to come down in the form of rain, not snow. Our snowpack up there is our bank, but if they're not going to have snow, you got to catch it in a reservoir. And I'm sorry to people, but yes, it costs money. But what you willing to pay $4 a gallon for gas if there's no other way to get it, if you've got to buy it, if you got to pay a little bit more every month to make sure that you've got clean, reliable, safe drinking water, I think most people will do it.
Okay. All right, so I think I'm going to go to an online submitted question. Let's go to Ray Myers.
Okay.
He's asking how much of the EID building is currently being used? And of course, this is his question, not mine, but why was it so overbuilt? So we'll start with Director Osborne.
Could you repeat that again?
Yeah, so it's how much of the EID building, I assume the headquarters building,
Okay.
is currently being used, and why was it so overbuilt?
That's a good question. When we built that thing, remember, we've reduced our staff by 30%. When we built the doggone thing, we had all these people and they were scattered all over the place, and so we built it. And I agree with there's probably a point where we overbuilt it, but at the time we didn't have any choice. People who were sitting, desks were on top, people sitting on top of each other. It was just one of those things. And then we started reducing the staff. Now we've got some extra room. And now what they've done is they've used a part of it for computers, big computer banks, and that's a whole nother story about computer hacking into our system. We've spent a fortune to prevent that. But yes, there is some room, but they're using it for storage. They're utilizing most of the building. And so, but again, it was built when you had a whole lot more people.
All right.
Can we talk at all?
No.
Because I would
No,
like to ask
no,
a
no.
question. about
They
that.
can't hear online. No.
You could repeat
You
it.
can use the cards. Okay. Over to Sue.
Sorry about that.
You can chat afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
all I have to do.
Sue, go ahead.
So that building's bothered me for a long time. When we were working with the ID, we met the guys in trailers. It was, and then to Blue. So I think it was around, it was when George was still, was a board member, they had a general manager that drank and was married. And they had, they blew up to about 305 employees. They built that building. They built all this infrastructure, and they said, oh, we're going to have all this building that's going to pay for all this. And then the building didn't happen. And so all that debt ended up being on the back of the ratepayer. And I would have said no if I was in that position, or asked, why are we overbuilding all these things? And there was apparently no question. So we have reduced that number of employees. I was looking at what those employees, 58 were in communications at that time, and we're down to 2. That's a good move. We've reduced the number of operations, but we've gone from about 25 million to 56 million in the cost of operations. So that's a 121% increase when inflation's gone 44%. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but I would like the opportunity to dig in and find out what's going on.
Okay. So it's to stay with you.
Me too.
All right. So this next question is one that was submitted on the cards, and it's not signed by an individual, although if the person wants to raise their hand when I ask it, feel free. When was the last time in history that EID reduced rates for its ratepayers? And they put a thing on the bottom. In 2011, my yearly EID bill was $600, but last month alone, it was $400. So I don't know if anyone's going to claim responsibility for that question or not, but Sue, we'll start with you.
So that was a good question. I actually, when they ate, drank, and were merry, I was involved with some of the larger ag businesses that were coming to EID to try to wrangle about the ag rates and different things. And they said, you know, we've met with them, we've got all this debt, we just need to, you know, take it and go ahead and pay the extra amount so we can bring down the debt. And I asked them, so if we're going to pay more and do all these things because of the party they had, when we get the debt paid down, are they going to reduce the fees? They said, well, that's a good question. I'm still waiting. I don't even know that the fees that they're collecting on the houses is going back to that debt. So that's another thing I would look into, but I've never seen them go down.
All right, Director Osborne.
How are we doing? That good?
Yeah, that's good.
Well, just for your information, there'll be no rate increase in sewer for 2 years, this year and next year. And we'll have to reevaluate that. The sewer is where the killer is. And the regulations from the state keep ratcheting it up. Every time every 5 years, we have to go through and get a new permit to operate the sewer plants, and they keep raising the environmental requirements to run those plants. One of the other things is that the cost of construction is higher than the normal CIP. I mean, the cost of inflation is maybe 2% in everything, but construction was 4 and 5%. And so if we don't build it today, and we can borrow money, we just borrowed money at 1.975%, 1.975% for 30 years. If we should be building more stuff and repairing more stuff because the cost of inflation is 4 or 5% for construction. Now, I'm not advocating we do that, but I'm just saying it's a potential of doing things, because if every time we delay a project, for example, the main ditch, it just kept escalating and escalating and escalating because of the delays.
Okay. All right. I forget this. You already answered that, right, Sue?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to go to a question from Zoom now. Let's go to Chris Payne. Chris Payne asks, in retrospect, was the purchase of Project 184 a good thing for EID? And then talk about it in the context of the water system and financial benefit.
Absolutely. Actually, PG&E paid EID $15 million to take it off their hands because they knew it was going to be expensive to fix it. It gave us 4 lakes: Echo Lake, Silver Lake, Aloha, and water rights out of Echo. The problem is the flume is expensive to fix, and we've been working on that. But our power plant generates between $6 and $8 million a year, and sometimes even more than that. Sometimes it's 11 million. If we have extra money, it goes to pay down debt. It goes to pay off some of our pension requirements. Absolutely, it was the right thing to do. It's 1/3 of our water supply, and it's pre-1914 water rights, which are absolutely premium. The state board can't touch them.
Okay. Over to Sue. There we go.
So for me, the verdict of that is still out. I've heard positive and negative. I think that it's an expensive venture we went into, but I think it was probably good for the water rights.
Cool. Very short. I like it. Okay. I'm going to go to another question off the cards here. This is also unsigned, but feel free to claim it if anybody wants to. Would you, if elected, promise to supply a ballot to district ratepayers for any new rate increases without an APN parcel number? So I guess that means without requiring an APN parcel number. Okay.
Well, I think I already kind of answered that. Was the I don't think the 218 process is fair, and it's not a real ballot. It's not a real opportunity. I don't even think people understand that that's what it is. It's, they call it because nobody wrote in, therefore nobody cared. Well, it's hopeless. You can protest a 218, but unless you get a certain percentage of everybody in the county, it can't pass. So why go through that effort? So I think if you're going to raise the rates on the public for a new toy or a new project, that the public should be involved.
All right. Director Osborne.
I'd like to know what the new toy is, but that's another matter. The 218 process is required by law, as I said before. We have an expert that is supposed to be the grand poobah of all 218 notices around the state. All of his 218 notices have been held up by the court, and an AP, the parcel number is part of the requirement. And yes, there's people that rent and everything else, but the point is most people realize that a small percentage increase is necessary in order to keep the system running. It's just, you just can't say no to everything. And this is a very, very complicated district, one of the most complicated in the state. And then people actually say, I don't know how in the hell you keep it going. It starts out at 8,000 feet, it ends up 300 feet. We've got miles and miles of pipe and lift stations and pressure points and pressure reducing stations, and there's just tons of infrastructure that's got to be maintained. And a $3 increase on your bill is less than a double latte espresso thingamabob that you buy at Starbucks. Stop and think about what you're really talking about. Anyway, it's got to be done.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go to, and I just switched something on the audio. So those of you listening online will see if it makes it a little bit better. But let me know if it actually made it worse instead. But I think it hopefully will have made it better. So we'll start with George on this one. We got a question from Debbie Manning. If we are selling water, why do we keep hearing that we do not have enough water for new development?
Well, we do have enough water for new development, but development is not EID's responsibility. That's the county and the planning commission and the county board of supervisors. They determine they determine where and when they're going to build a subdivision going to be built. We have the water supply. We sell water. We will not sell water to anyone if it jeopardizes our own customers. We always look and see what our demands are and what reserves are before we sell our water. And again, that when we're selling that water, it goes to hold down your rates or hold down debt or hold down retirement obligations. There's just a lot of things. And that money that we generate from water sales is governed by the board. The board is the ones that determine where we're going to spend that money. It's not done something that the general manager just decides to buy a new toy with. I don't know where that comes from, but anyway.
Okay. I'll go over to Sue.
So I have a lot of thoughts about this, so I got to get it down to 1.5 minutes. So when the Bureau of Reclamation built Sly Park, 5/6 of it was supposed to be guaranteed for agriculture. When EID bought it, which is a great thing, I guess that obligation went away without any other guarantees for ag. Then we've taken all the ditch water away from ag and piped it all. And so now basically agriculture is under the mercy of whether EID is going to hold on to their rates or not. So I'm not sure about, we're going back into housing. Is there enough to keep the promises that everybody keeps talking about in the general plan to retain agriculture? I think we seem to forget all those promises of the past, and we just keep moving forward until our system is huge. It's huge because we've sent everything down to, a lot of it down to El Dorado Hills and a very complicated water system. So I don't think we have the water rights. It's the infrastructure. And does the rest of the county want to continue building the infrastructure and going into debt for those houses? I guess that's up to our boards.
Okay. I think I saw a question pop up here on Facebook, so I'm going to pull that up. This is from Mike Owen. He is asking, should all EID system users pay the same rates for water? I guess you can interpret that question however you want.
Yeah, that's really complicated. Could be really complicated. There's a lot of different customers. So no, ag is completely different. I lean more towards ag because they built the system. Our family was in ag. We built our own water lines. I think you have to account for that and make sure all of us, our whole general plan with the Board of Supervisors is really strong on open space, agriculture, farming, ranching, logging. But yet we seem to ignore that and don't put in the policies in place that actually protect that. So I think there's got to be a way that we protect ag while we do the other things that are going on in the county.
Okay, over to George.
Okay. No, they shouldn't pay. They should be
Hold on a second. Sorry, lost the video for a second.
That's probably a good thing.
Okay, hold on just a second. I'm just double checking. Why does Doing that. Okay. Just making sure the microphone is the way it was. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, do you want me to start over
Yeah,
again?
start over, please.
No, we should not have one single rate. When they took the ditches away, piped the ditches, and because the water loss was horrendous, they put it in a pipe. Agriculture draws their water from a pipe system. And a perfect world, it'd have been two pipes, one potable, one residential for residential use. That's not the case. But I always maintain that between where the development is in El Dorado Hills and where the forest boundary, if we're going to keep us rural, we're going to have to keep rates, ag rates reasonable. And I am a very, very strong supporter of the small farms. And I even went to farm even so much as to allow livestock, goats, sheep, whatever. If we're going to keep it rural, we want to keep our lifestyle the way it is. We need to keep reasonable agricultural rates.
Okay. So let's see, we've got time for a couple of more questions here. Look through let me check the email box, see if anybody else wrote in. All right, I got another one from Ray Myers. What is the dollar amount of the unfunded liabilities for EID, and what is your plan to pay that down?
The actual number, or I'm not sure exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah, I think he just asked, what is the dollar amount of the unfunded liability?
I suspect he's talking about the retirement fund.
Yeah, I think
That may be CalPERS.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I forget the actual number at the moment. I didn't write it down, but I do know that it's manageable. Yes, it's a problem. Every agency in the state's got a problem with it. We have a plan. It'll be paid off. It's part of the process. And again, when we sell water, we can take that money and put it against that debt or that open. And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, it could be paid off in 24 years. But we anticipate by selling water, we can expect expedite that problem. Again, it's a problem everywhere. In the late 1997 to about 2003, PERS was telling everybody, we got so much money, we're making all this money off of our investments. It's not a problem. And then all of a sudden the bottom fell out in 2007. Well, now we're stuck with the problem, but it's manageable. We're working on it, and we're reducing it as fast as we possibly can.
So can you say it one more time? real quick?
Yeah, so for some reason.
I got it.
when it toggles
It's the
back to
unfunded
you.
pensions. I got it. Never
Okay.
mind. Okay, so.
Go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
first you need to stop spending so much money. And we had 3 projects that from perception of should we move forward with this to when it got approved, these 3 projects, they overran the initial estimate by about $56 million. So we borrowed $70 million that we are now going to be paying for the next 30 years off on projects that were never even debated at the EID council. So, and the other thing is we just gave our general manager a salary, an extended contract. His contract's not up till next year. We went ahead and gave him a 3-year extension with 20% salary increases. So if you got to stop spending money before you can start figuring out ways to cut it back. So I have a big concern with all the ratepayers paying for all this system, and we can't afford to use it. So we sell it to somebody else just to get the debt paid off. The whole thing sounds ridiculous.
Okay. So we got a couple of questions submitted on the cards. Let's see. So I think this is one question together. So the question is, how much of ag in El Dorado County is represented by the winery business versus other types of agriculture? And then it says this group can pass costs on to its customers, so why give them a discount on rates? So Sue, we'll start with you.
So I go back to the small farms actually built that water system, and the winery organization is growing more and more. I kind of yeah, they are their own. They're very organized. Let's put it that way. But I just, in 2012, and our family is one of this because we built our water lines. We were promised the domestic irrigation rates, and in 2012, EID voted to give those people, there was about 1,300 farms, small farms, and they were given about a year to go on to a different rate, small rate. And ever since then, those small farms have been jumping around between 1,300 down to less than 400 farms, which I think is about where we're at now. We're going to lose our open space if we don't take care of those people.
Okay, over to George.
Okay, first of all, the money we spent on building that dam the dam was mandated by the state, and they told us that if we did not start construction by end of 2017, they were going to take over the project. Can you imagine how great that would have been to have the state running in our backyard? We would have had no choice about what we did. It was mandated in 2006, and 11 years later, they said, you've got to build the damn thing. So we took opportunity to raise it 10 feet, go from 1 day's water supply to to a 6-day water supply. As far as the domestic irrigation, it was ruled illegal. And so, because it was a standalone rate, we could not have it. So we had to go to the small farms, even if a lot of people and I disagreed with that. But they said it was illegal. We had to go to the small farm. So we have ag, small farm, rec turf, and residential. And so that's just the way it is. And you're going to find out if in fact you're successful in this, we run a highly regulated government business. Everybody turning around, there's agencies that are constantly on us to do things, and you cannot ignore them. That's what got the district into trouble years ago, trying to ignore the rate. They've got the hammer.
All right. So I think,
Okay.
I think we're going to move to closing statements now. So you'll each have a minute for a close. That's good, George. You'll each have 1 minute for a closing statement. As part of that closing statement, I'd like you, for those who aren't able to be here with us in the room today, if people have questions and they'd like to get in touch with you and learn more, what's the best way they can do that? So as part of your closing, please go ahead and work that in, but you'll have a minute for closing statement.
Okay, I'll give you my phone number to start with, 530-613-3800, 613-3800. I'd love to talk to you. Now, as far as what I plan to do in the future, I could continue to support agriculture, and that includes the small farms, that's our best effort to keep, one of my slogans in my campaign is roots, not rooftops. And if you're going to continue to keep our rural lifestyle, we've got to do that. I'm going to continue to look for more water for drought storage. I'm going to look let's see. That's good enough.
All right. Over to Sue.
Okay. George, you gotta pass.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, everybody. Sorry, Chris. Just having a hard time.
There you go.
Got it?
That's good. That's good.
Okay. Actions speak louder than words. I have been at EID meetings for years to advocate to maintain our infrastructure and keeping water rates affordable. People enjoy our open space in El Dorado County, and our farms provide that open space. Without affordable water rates, our farms are suffering and closing down, changing the rural character of our county. Without affordable water rates, residents are not watering their yards or filling their ponds, contributing to the loss of our lush and fire-resistant landscapes. George has consistently voted to approve bloated projects that end up costing 2 or 3 times more than originally proposed by staff. Those project costs are passed on to ratepayers and have tripled water rates in the past 10 years alone. On February 10th, 2020, the board voted to move forward with the 218 process, which allows 17% of rate increases over the next few years. So the choice is yours. Vote for someone who has been on the EID board for 20 years, rubber stamping staff recommendations and raising your water and sewer rates, or vote for me, who is willing to question, to do the research needed, and fight to hold EID accountable to the ratepayers. Thank you.
With that, thank you once again to both of our candidates here today. You give them a round of applause. That's good. Put that camera back. So thank you to all of those in the room here and joining us online. Apologies for the technical sound issues there. We will be back here next week. We'll be talking with the candidates for Division 3. So that's the Placerville area. So if you live in that area or have friends and family that do, please join us again next week. And for now, if you're a Taxpayer Association member here on Zoom, we'll have a little tiny bit of discussion after we turn off the live stream. For everybody else watching online, thanks so much for joining us and hope to see you next week.
If you're available, come out to the lake at 10:30 and